Welcome, everyone, to Dead Talk Live. I am your host, Viz. Our guest today is actress Jacqueline Byers, whose new movie, Shadow of God, is premiering on Shudder April 11th. Jacqueline, welcome to the show. It's great to have you. Congratulations on the new film. I really enjoyed it. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you for that. Those are some kind words. I'm good. I flew in last night, so I got to sleep in my own bed, see my dog, have some good
Them-
coffee this morning that I was missing while I was gone, things like that.
Exactly. When you're traveling, you don't know where you're waking up and what bed you're in, so it's good to be at home. So let's
No,
get
it takes me about a minute. Where am I?
so let's get right into this. Shadow of God comes on the heels of another successful movie that you did, Pray for the Devil. Both movies center around supernatural forces but are completely different. What were your thoughts of the Shadow of God script in relation to how different it is from Pray for the Devil?
Oh, it's a completely different approach to exorcism and it takes it in a much bigger way. Where Shadow of God, I don't want to give too much away, but
Hmm.
I almost say that it's kind of like a chess game between God and Lucifer and the human beings being its pawns. Some characters play bigger roles than other. So it's a completely different look at exorcism, bringing in kind of like a grandiose scale.
Hmm.
Although there's themes that cross over, guilt and shame that play such an important role within the religious framework. Um, but also for the two different characters that I play, one has a very religious belief system, and the other one comes from a completely medical belief system with an understanding of the other. So it was nice to kind of have approach both characters and have an understanding from the different perspectives that they would have come to, exorcism and
And
spiritual belief at the end of the day.
And what were your feelings on that regarding the script, where they really twisted around? And it's in the synopsis, so it's not a big surprise. Where possibly God could be the bad guy in this movie. I mean, that was very refreshing for me. I'd never seen anything like it, and it made you wonder. And it made you think. What were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, I think God being the bad guy or the idea of puritanism or being puritanical, having a sort of evil, undertone and level to it, I think is quite relevant right now
Yeah,
in terms of our political environment. So um, I think it's fascinating. I think Tim had he's the writer of Shadow of God, just a really different approach to good versus evil. And, there's maybe always a little bit of room for gray.
exactly. Now, your character's name is Tanis Green. Your co-star, Mark O'Brien, plays the exorcist, Mason Harper. Now, for me, Tanis and Mason's relationship was always, you're trying to figure it out as the movie goes along. How would you describe their relationship?
I think that they're each other's person.
Hmm.
Um, and they went through immense amount of trauma as children together, survived it, but then took different paths
Yeah.
on how to, keep going under their circumstances. But I think she's chased him around the world for many years, trying to stay in touch. But I think at the end of the day, it's kind of that person that you're at a party, you look across the room and they're the only one. It's like they get it.
Yeah, yeah. You both lived that same trauma. And
Yeah.
like you said, you guys took completely different routes. You went to the military and then ultimately became a psychiatrist. Mason totally went to seminary school and took the spiritual route and became a priest. Was it that shared trauma that kept you two guys connected all those years?
I'd like to think it was something more than that. I think that that's, a reason why they stayed connected, but are they connected before that? Or like, interesting question.
Ta-
um,
well, for me, Tannis seems to be Mason's, temptation in life. You are tempting him to, he's a priest, he has an oath of celibacy, but seemed to show feelings towards him. How would you describe that?
Yeah, I think those feelings were developed before he became a priest.
Hmm.
So I don't think it's something that just goes away, you know?
And is it just that she is so, because of what happened growing up in a cult and all that, she is just so untrusting of the spiritual world, religion, and all that, that she doesn't take what Mason does very seriously at all. And an oath that he took, she just doesn't put much credence into it.
No, I think she understands why he went down that path, but I think that she thinks it's more of a survival tactic than an actual reality.
Okay,
Uh,
that makes sense. Now, as an actor, you really don't get to see your work until it's finally all put together, and you sit down in the theater at the premiere, and you get to see the final product on the screen. What were your thoughts when you saw this movie? It's very visually engaging. It's pretty bloody, and so how did you feel after you saw the finished product?
I always have to watch it twice. The first time I'm like, and then the second time I really get to sit down and watch it from like more of an audience perspective and enjoy it for the full film rather than kind of being very just, you know, aware that that's me on screen.
Uh-huh.
Um, I thought the edit was really strong. They use sound in a really great way, which is always so fun in horror films. Um, yeah, I was honestly very not I want to say pleasantly surprised. I had high expectations like for it. I thought we made something special when we were doing it. Mark's a really great actor to work with and has such knowledge of cinema in general. He's a filmmaker, so it's nice when you're working with people that the goal is the movie, not their own, I don't know,
Yeah,
place in you know.
it's their story and they're telling it exactly how they want to tell it. Now, as the movie progresses, Tanis starts to see things that really make her question her own beliefs, how she views the world in a very scientific, from a psychiatrist point of view. Do you think she starts believing in the supernatural, the spiritual, or is she still trying to rationalize what she is witnessing through the lens of science?
I think that from what she's seen as a young girl, she's probably suppressed a lot of those memories. And when new information keeps being provided to her, it's kind of unlocking those things of her past. And she
Yeah.
starts to be like, oh, yeah, this actually might be a possibility. And I've been actually the one with blinders on this whole time when I've thought that Mason was.
The one, yeah. Now,
Yeah.
Josh Crudis has a small but very important role in the film. You two don't share a scene, but I'm sure when you watch the finished movie, that dialogue between his character and Mason was pretty electrifying.
Isn't
Uh,
he so great?
he's amazing. He's
That's
amazing.
one of the fun things when you get to finally watch the film. It's like I didn't get to see them shoot that scene.
Yeah.
So it's, yeah, he kind of blew me away. I have his name written down on the page actually, because I was truly like, he did such an incredible job at playing Lucifer.
And when I was watching it, his performance just really caught me. He really just pulls you in into believing exactly he is who he says he is. So when you were watching that, you were just like every other audience member who's going to see that. You were like, wow, what an amazing
Yeah.
job. And the dialogue, what'd you think of the dialogue between those two?
The dialogue, they both did it so masterfully because it's complex. It's they're dealing with complex issues. It's a big part of the story that's like, will the audience be able to understand what is actually happening?
Hmm.
And they do it in such a grounded way, and it's such an elevated, and it's heightened, but it feels real. I really was so blown away by that scene.
Like I told you before we started, I saw the film twice, and seeing it the second time, is the case in a lot of films, watching it the second time, I picked up on a lot of stuff that I didn't catch the first time around. So that was very interesting. Now let's go back to Pray for the Devil. You were the lead in a film that did really well, received great reviews. what kind of an effect did that have on your career, for both on your career and as a personal level? Plenty of actors go through an entire career without tasting that success. So what was that like for you?
Pray for the Devil holds like a really special place in my heart. I'm really proud of that movie. I also, to get that part, I was against a bunch of people. Like to get a movie made, people have to be bankable. That's
Hmm.
like a big reason when they're cast. I wasn't. Um, so I had to fight for that role pretty hard and got very lucky that they took the risk with me. Um, what it did for my career, it came out and then there's a bunch of strikes and
Ah,
last year's I think has been really hard for everybody. But it's really nice. It's a great, at the end of the day, it's a great showcase of what I can do. I really believe that. And um, hopefully I think it probably had an influence on me getting this role. I wouldn't have gotten it without that.
well, Pray for the Devil, for me personally, you had to carry the weight for the entirety of that film, and you did a fantastic job. I thought you were amazing in it. In 2017, let's go to the TV side. You were on a show that I watched, Salvation. Now, the big difference between being on a popular TV show as opposed to film, you have more of job security. Especially if the show takes off, you know what your next gig is going to be. You know you're going to be shooting X amount of episodes.
Yeah.
Salvation got 2 seasons. What was that like as opposed to shooting a film where you're shooting 4 to 8 to 12 weeks and then you're off to your next gig, as opposed to being on a TV show where you know exactly what you're going to be doing. You're on for the next year, and if you get renewed, the second year, and so on.
Yeah, it's funny how things change and what you want out of your career. I was in my 20s and all I wanted to do was indie film. Um, which I've been gifted the opportunity to do that. That financial stability as an actor, I think I took for granted a bit at the time. I was very grateful. I loved the show. I loved working with the actors that I worked with, and it was super fun. But then, you don't always have that forever,
Yeah.
and there's a perspective shift. That being said, the last few years I've worked a lot more in independent film, and I have not felt more creatively um, just lucky, and kind of that's the path that I would love to continue going down. I know
Is it because it
I
allows?
wouldn't mind a show either, the financial
Yeah,
aspect is nice, and TV's getting so good.
yeah, it is. It is.
Yeah.
And, with independent film, you're just allowed a lot more freedom creatively, as opposed to a studio really bearing down on you. And we can talk about that all day,
Yeah, it
but
even comes down to aesthetics of how things are shot. Like I remember we shot a pilot on sandbags and then they didn't want the camera moving. And
yeah,
it's structured. And it's structured for a reason. And I think you can be really creative within that structure.
yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
with with independent film, the issue is that you don't have all the money to do everything that you want to do with, which I just leans into being able to be more creative with how you're going to tell the story because you're forced into that just by financial.
Exactly. Creative and innovative. You have to
Yeah.
do with a lot less. Jacqueline, I want to thank you so much for coming on with us today. Jacqueline's new film, again, is called Shadow of God. It is premiering April 11th on Shudder. Make sure to check it out. This is not your typical possession film. It's going to have you guessing throughout the whole film. So, Jacqueline, again, thank you so much. I want to thank our audience who are tuning in. On behalf of myself and Jacqueline, stay safe, stay walking. Till next time, guys. Bye bye.